All right. Good morning. Good morning. Here we go. Happy Friday, everyone. Freedom Friday. Doug, how you doing? Sarah, good morning. Trevor, how's it going? Happy Friday. Man, I'm excited. So, all right. Hey, well, let's go ahead and get things going. Robby T has been one of my friends and one of my coaches for many years. And so I'm excited that we could get him to carve out some time. He's one of the top coaches, teams in the country. So, hey, Robby, can you share a little bit about yourself? And let's just jump right into our content today.
I love it. Well, first off, thanks for having me on a Freedom Friday. I like the ring of that. As Tom said, appreciate you having me on today. Had the privilege of coaching him and being friends in circles for many, many years now. I'm Robby T, and the reason I go by Robby T is my last name is Trefethrin, which sounds like a pharmaceutical drug with all the problems, but none of the money. So I got to work for a living. On a more serious note, long story short, I started in this game about a decade ago as an ISA, inside sales agent. So my background where I started was calling uncontacted leads, unknowns, people that I didn't know, people that were mad, calling leads and having conversations, and hoped to convert them into opportunities for our team. So that's where I started. Did that for about 3 years. To kind of give you guys some numbers behind it, I made over 100,000 phone calls, spoke to 10,000 people, set 1,000 appointments. That led to about 500 closings over 2.5-ish years as an ISA. In other words, I'm the lead geek. On a personal note, I'm a total nerd, love Star Wars, love the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, it's tough being a Minnesota sports fan. I don't know if there's any of you out there, but maybe we'll have a crying session, a counseling session later. But my whole goal, what I try to teach people is how to have better conversations, frankly. Because I found that most of the old school stuff that we were taught on how to do sales was trash, frankly. Tough to be a Broncos fan. Hey, man, at least you guys got a Super Bowl ring. So we got none. Anyways, I digress. Really what it comes down to is the old school mantras in sales. I firmly believe they're dead. The whole always be closing, those types of things. Sell or be sold, the stuff from Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, all that stuff. I essentially just view it as a relic of the past. And instead, I want to teach you guys a few things on a 10,000 foot view of my approach on how to have really great conversations with leads, with your clients, or frankly, with your team members. Because what I've realized is selling is simply influence. We all agree on that? Selling is influence, and influence is your ability to get somebody to do something. Now, I have a couple North Stars, and my very first North Star is that I will never, ever, ever have somebody do something that isn't in their best interest. That is the long-term play. Even if it's in my best interest, if it's not in their best interest, I ain't a fan of it. And it's why I hate the idea of closing. It's why I say to always be closing is dead. And instead, I believe in the mantra. And I think the new ABCs of sales are always be curious, connecting, and collaborating. What that really means is instead of pushing, we're asking. Instead of closing, we're collaborating. And instead of making assumptions, we're asking questions. So really my whole goal in everything that I teach is how to be more curious, how to build better connections, and how to collaborate better. And here's why I like collaboration. Collaboration, if you were to look up the meaning, is essentially some form of multiple people working towards a common goal or cause. I don't know about you all, but are we actually closing people? Or are we collaborating with them? Because no offense to you all, what's really funny is actually none of you are salespeople. Your state might call you a salesperson, a sales broker, but none of you all are salespeople. Unless, and I'll ask this question, who in here builds homes and sells them? Did not expect to see many hands. None of you all are actually salespeople. You see, we're in the service industry that calls ourselves salespeople. Because when you're selling something, you got to have a product to sell. What we're doing is we're providing a service. We're helping people purchase a product. We're not selling a thing. What we're doing is we're helping people, we're collaborating with them, working towards a common goal. And that's what I just kind of realized was, what's closing? Rather, it's collaborating. Another big thing that I've realized over my time in this real estate game is that people don't want to be sold. And it actually really doesn't matter what industry you're in. I'll tell you a story about that in a moment. People don't want to be sold. They want to be heard, understood, and valued. You see, before I got into this real estate game, I worked in the one thing that is less popular than sales. Any guesses? Political campaigns. I was a psycho who would knock your door or make phone calls, and I would ask, who are you voting for? And what's really fascinating is simply the idea that my job was to find out the most, sensitive information. What are you hoping to vote for? And these types of issues. And basically, what's really interesting is when I got into that game, I was given the whole script book, walk up to somebody's door and say you're with blank and blank political candidate and try to tell them why they should vote for our candidate. And something really interesting would happen. I'd get cussed at. I'd get booed off the doorstep. I had guns pointed at me, y'all. You think of a cuss word or a phrase that's offensive, I heard it. So I was, I've done it, probably I'm the smartest person in the world, but I was smart enough to realize this approach is really, really not working. So I pivoted. And I'm the type that I love being a contrarian. The more I study, the more I realize really successful people tend to be contrarians. So if everybody's running that way, they run right. If everybody's investing, you're de-investing. If everybody's selling, you're buying, right? Simple things. And what I realized was, if I'm being told to go and tell people why they should vote for my candidate, I should flip it. And what I should do is I should, instead of sell them on my candidate, I should sell myself on them. That's what I started doing. I went up to people's doorsteps when I was working political campaigns. I said, hey, Tom, I'm with blank and blank political campaign. And I just wanted to find out what mattered to you this election. And almost always they would give me some superficial, some surface level answer. Something like, well, I really care about school districts, or I really care about economics, or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. And then what would happen is I would use the most powerful phrase, I think, in all of human communication. I want everybody to write down. It's simply what I call the best script in the book, which is tell me more. So Tom says, I'm like, well, I really care about schools. And I said, well, tell me about that. Help me understand that a little bit better. And it's really funny because tell me more is not necessarily a script. It's more of a mindset. And y'all, what do you think started happening? Instead of being booed off the doorstep, instead of having guns pointed at me, some really crazy things started happening. I started getting offered cookies. People started inviting me into their homes. It sometimes got weird, to be honest. And more importantly, you know what I noticed is people didn't shut up. And here's what I'll very frankly, when I worked in politics, I love political campaigns. I went to college for it. I studied political science. Here's what I'll tell you is that we allow minor differences to define ourselves in labels. And here's what I found is that almost every single person I spoke to, there was some common ground between what they wanted and the candidate I worked for. Fast forward, what happened was I trained an army of volunteers to do the same thing, and we helped elect 2 people that everybody said were unelectable, was never going to happen. And there is zero doubt that I believe the reason and we were able to do that was, one, we had great volunteers who implemented it, but secondly, we built connections and found out in depth what people were hoping for, and we connected that to our candidates. And y'all, let's just realize that this real estate game is the exact same thing. It's influence. I was influencing those voters, and it was in their best interest, frankly. The person or the issue they cared about, our candidate happened to care about that exact same thing too, in the exact same way. When these people want a home, they desire something. My goal is to find out at the core of it, what is it that they're needing, wanting, or desiring? Simply put, I try to find the motivation, and motivation is almost always emotional. And really what happens is they're either running after something, they're pursuing something, or they're running away from something. That's how humans work. Why? Because logic makes us think and emotion makes us act. What it really comes down to is humans at the core are either running from something or towards something. And what I found is the more I had conversations, the more I shine the spotlight, less on me, actually, if anything. People don't care about you all. They care about themselves. The more I shine the spotlight on them, frankly, the easier it became for me to understand what is it they wanted. And then I could reflect it back and collaborate with them to get and work towards a common cause. And of course, we benefit in this. How? We sell homes. But at the very North Star, what I'm always doing is I'm putting their needs, wants, and desires above all else. It's what matters. That's the long-term game. You can violate this in the short term, but I think it's going to cost you in the long term. So big recaps of things of my core philosophy. Tell me more. Curiosity, connection, and collaboration. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Now, that all sounds really great from a 10,000-foot view. But what happens in some markets is tell me more backfires. Okay? I'm going to teach you when. I'm going to talk about when to use tell me more and when it doesn't work so well. So it works really well. Tell me more is always the appropriate approach when somebody is telling you about what they need, want, or desire. Basically, it's a who, what, when, where, and why. If they're talking about the house they want, what house they want, the details, when they want to do it. Tell me more is almost always a great thing to be asking. By the way, tell me more, you can ask it like this. Help me understand that. Clarify that for me. Tell me a bit about that. What does that mean to you, right? There's a lot of different ways to do it. But what it really comes down to is there are places where if you do this, it backfires. So here's the no-go zone.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well played. Well played. Yeah, it's really, I get made fun of a lot. People will do that to me all the time. Tell me more, Robby, on my team. What it really comes down to is there are certain places that it backfires. And here's where it traditionally backfires. Is when they are articulating a fear-based response. When they're articulating a fear-based response. A really good example of this is when interest rates went up. People are afraid to buy because of interest rates. Well, that's a fear-based objection. If people are afraid of who the president is, or the market, or uncertainty, or Russia, or COVID, or whatever is fear-based, if you say, tell me more to a fear-based objection, what happens to the amount of fear in their mind? Does it go up? Does it stay the same? Or does it go down?
Goes up.
It goes up. And what happens when there's more fear? It's very simple. Creates more resistance. And I don't know about you all, but when there's more resistance, it's a lot more difficult to influence people. So here's the trick that I learned, and I want to talk about this. right now, because I've been seeing a lot of it the last 9-12 months. And I think we're going to see it. It's very normal. It happens all the time. It's very normal to hear fear-based objections. Things like, I want to wait for rates to go down. I want to wait till a later point. I want to wait until the market goes down. I want to wait until X president is out of office. It doesn't really matter. None of that crap's matters. But in their mind, it's a fear. So when they say these things, there's 4 different types of approaches that I see people take. Okay. Number 1, the first approach is you believe them. Here's what I mean by you believe them. Somebody says, well, I'm going to wait a year until there's a different president. I'm going to wait until rates go down. I'm going to wait until prices decrease. I'm going to wait till the market crashes. And there's a big problem with you believing them. It's probably not true. So the worst thing you can do is believe them. The second thing I see people do, and there's going to be a few of you right now, it's going to hit you in the face. Like a fly swatter smacking in her face when a fly just landed on her nose. It's something I call debating them. Holy God, I saw a lot of this the last 9 months. Here's a really good example. Well, I want to wait till rates come down. I totally appreciate that. But did you know that interest rates are actually still pretty low compared to the 80s when they were 17, 18%? Y'all, when somebody's feeling an emotion, the logic of what you're saying does not matter. Anyone in a committed monogamous marriage? Have you ever had emotional-based conversations? What happens to logic in emotional-based conversations? Bye-bye. It oftentimes backfires. And the way I describe this is you can be saying all the right things. You can be saying facts. You can be spitting fire. You can be putting on a TED freaking talk about why it's dumb as hell to wait to purchase. And it could be absolutely facts. And it doesn't matter. Because they're not in a mental place. They're unregulated, right? It's like your toddler when they're freaking out and you're like, stop doing that, stop doing that. How does that work? It doesn't work. And they just keep doing it. You get frustrated. Y'all, I'm a parent of 3 kids. I want to pound my head against the wall sometimes, but it doesn't work. They're dysregulated. Why? They're feeling an emotion. These people are feeling an emotion. Your logic is going in one ear and actually raising resistance. Why? Because in a debate, we want to push back. This is why most political arguments are fruitless. It's emotional. The third approach I see people doing is utilizing tell me more. Oh, you want to wait for rates to go down? Tell me more about that. You want to wait for the market to crash? Well, tell me why you think that. And what happens is that third approach leads to more resistance, more fear, because they start thinking those thought patterns over and over again. Now, I want you all to consider something here. What is the core dynamic that every single person is afraid of when it comes to us as salespeople?
Rejection.
What is everybody afraid of when I talk to a salesperson? Go ahead, Tom.
Rejection.
We are afraid of rejection. What are they afraid of on the receiving end?
Being sold. They're afraid of being sold.
Let's take that another step. They're afraid of doing something that they don't want to do. When we say they're afraid of being sold, what we're really saying is they're afraid of buyer's remorse. They're afraid of seller's remorse. They're afraid of being pushed into a corner of doing something that they don't want to do. And do you blame them? I don't. Because when you go to a car dealership and you walk on that lot, you feel the same thing. When you go into a furniture store and you think about buying that new bedroom set, you feel the same thing when that person walks up to you. So what you need to acknowledge, whether it's a lead or your clients, it is normal for people to have resistance. It's normal for people to have resistance. I'll say that a third dang time. It is normal for people to have resistance. For some reason, people forgot this. And I have a simple theory behind it. Post-COVID, due to the interest rates being so dang low, and because COVID essentially operating as a billboard to own your own home, right? Y'all heard Ryan Serhant say that? I think it's the most brilliant thing. The COVID experience for most people was a billboard to own or upgrade your own home, right? Why? Because you got locked inside of it. It was your classroom, your living room, your vacation destination, your office, everything, your movie theater. So what do people do? They wanted bigger, better homes. And on top of that, we saw what? Historically low interest rates. Well, what did that do to people's motivation? Through the roof. What did that do to people's resistance? Lowest I've ever seen. And we'll never see that again. We will never, ever see that again, I think, in our lives. Very frankly. It was a combination of the two craziest things ever happened in real estate. It is normal. Prior to that, it is normal for people to resist. Here's how we deal with resistance. Here's how we deal with fear-based objections. This is number 4. I call it the art of the pivot. You just want to write down one word. It's pivot. Here's how you do it. You acknowledge what they say and you ask another motivation theme question. So if Tom goes on a rant about how he doesn't like the current president and how he's afraid about the market, the uncertainty, I'm going to acknowledge his answer. Okay, let's make sure we understand what acknowledge means. Acknowledge does not mean to affirm or agree, right? Because you're going to hear some people say some wacky crap, right? And I don't agree with them. I don't have to agree with them. I don't have to affirm it even. I have to acknowledge it. Why? Because if you don't acknowledge it, people don't feel heard. Tom, I can totally see that perspective. Thank you for sharing it with me. Right? Acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge what they say. All right, Tom, I totally see that perspective. Tom, I hear you. Thanks for sharing that with me. Got it, Tom. I hear you. I don't even repeat that back or rephrase it back when it's that crazy, because I don't want to. What does it do if I rephrase it? It brings it back up. I want to ignore the living heck out of it is what I'm trying to do. You guys see that? Hence the pivot. And then I'm going to ask a motivation theme question. Got it, Tom. I appreciate you sharing that with me. But help me understand, why were you interested in thinking about making a move in the first place? Y'all, it's truly this simple. Acknowledge and pivot to a motivation theme question. And here's what I've noticed. At first, they still have a little bit of resistance, right? Well, we kind of want to get a bigger place, but with the market and everything and the rates and president, blah, 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 we just don't think it's a really great time. The crappy salesperson only hears the resistance. The great salesperson hears the thing about getting a bigger home. They heard the opportunity. So this is what you have to do, is you have to zoom in on the opportunity over and over and over again. And here's what I've noticed is the more you zoom in on the opportunity and less on the resistance, what happens is their fear dissipates and comes down. Their fear about the market lowers. And here's what I've noticed, y'all, is people almost always are overinflating this fear because they're slightly afraid of the market, but they're also afraid of you. And what happens is, when you ask these questions about what's motivating them in the first place, the more you shine the light on them and you focus less on selling or talking or any of those things and on the resistance, what happens is their fear about the market dissipates, their fear about you dissipates, and their fear about inaction rises. Now, here's why I think this is really important. Is what do you think they're going to feel when they walk home? What do you think they're going to feel when they get home from work? Do you think they're going to be afraid of the market? No. Do you think they're going to be afraid of the salesperson? No. What are they going to be afraid of? Stepping on that Lego for the 45th time. They're afraid of another fight about the backyard not being big enough. They're afraid about blah, 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 whatever is motivating them. So y'all, I wanted to keep this concise for you all today and be to the point, because I know that I want to respect you guys' time. The point behind this is Tell Me More, I think, is the best thing in the world when we're talking about them and their wants and desires and what they're hoping to do, but it can backfire when they're talking about their fears. And what instead we do is we circle back to the motivation, ignore the fear, because that doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve you. It just holds everybody back. And then we get stuck. And then I'll add one more final piece. I think great leadership is the intersection of being really great at learning people's truth, but also reflecting truth back to them. Remember earlier when I talked about how you could put on a whole TED talk on why right now is actually a really great time to buy, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever do that. I'm saying you're doing it too early. What I'm saying is you need to wait to influence them until you've already found out what's influencing them. You need to not try to sell them and push them and speak truth, yet you have to wait. In other words, you can't speak truth until you learn the truth of what they want. When you flip that, when you learn their truth, I describe it like this. I talk about how there's 4 different types of leaders, okay? There's an apathetic leader. Anybody ever follow an apathetic leader before? Go to almost any fast food restaurant, right? Your manager, apathetic as heck. It's the worst thing in the world. They're the worst leaders to work for. The next worst type of leader that I like to talk about is a leader who is an enabler of bad behavior. Enablers of bad behavior are really good at learning truth. Though they'll hear you out, you're good at asking questions, but man, you will not reflect truth back. You're afraid to tell them the tough things. In this type of market, you're afraid to be realistic about the fact that we're not going to see the market crash. Anyone think that? Anyone think the market's going to crash? Nope. What's going to happen to real estate prices next year? Are they going to be the same, lower, or higher than what it is right now?
Higher.
Higher. What happens if rates go down to 5.5% or 6% from 7%?
It's going to get crazy.
It's going to get crazy. Why? Because demand. There's so many people on the fence like, I want to wait because rates are high. The moment the rates come down to 5.5%, affordability goes up. We are in the midst of a freaking housing crisis in the United States, which is leading to an affordability crisis. And nobody is building affordable homes. Nobody is building average price homes. Almost all builders are building 150% of the average price point in almost any market out there. We have to be speaking that truth back. But again, the second type of leader are what I call enablers. They don't do that. They're afraid to for a variety of reasons. Maybe they aren't confident. Maybe you're afraid. Maybe it's just not fun to reflect back the truth. There's a third type of leader. I call this person the asshole. The asshole is a debater. They're the person that tells you the truth right away, but you don't want to hear it. They speak the truth, but they didn't ask you any questions. They didn't learn what you wanted. A person's an a-hole, yeah? I think great leaders are really good at seeking truth and speaking truth. And that's what we're doing
That
here.
again. Can you repeat that one more time?
Great leaders are great at seeking truth and speaking truth. In that order. Seek, then speak. You have to be willing to do both, but you have to hear them first, because when you hear them, their fear dissipates. When you hear them, their guard comes down, and then you can speak truth to them. You can't speak truth to somebody who's emotionally elevated until they have calmed down. Well, that's what we're doing here when we're hearing people. We're helping calm them down. We're signaling them, hey, I'm not here to sell you anything. You're not here to debate them or push back or any of these things. What we're doing here is we're helping them regulate themselves, and then we can speak truth. Because y'all, I have a very firm belief that the best time to buy a house or to invest in real estate was yesterday. Almost always. And y'all, nobody knows. It's a fool's errand. As somebody who studied investing at a high level, nobody knows it's going to happen. The worst thing that you can do with investments is be out of the market. That's 100% fact. The worst thing you can be doing is paying somebody else's rent. I mean, as an investor, thanks, but the worst thing you can do for yourself is pay somebody else's rent. Like, these are just simple facts. These are facts of life. It's economics 101. So seek truth, speak truth. You have to be willing to do both. Tom, that's all I got for you guys.
Okay, couple questions. So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about fears of our clients. What about our fears? Fear of, picking up the phone, fear of rejection, fears overall. How can we all push through our fears to have those conversations? Because we've got to get through our fears to get them on the phone, right?
I think you guys will appreciate this. Anyone ever heard of the LA Lakers?
The what?
LA Lakers.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, right? I know my audience. I just had a call with Colton Whitney and talked about the same thing too. Here's what's funny. Does anybody know where the LA Lakers were actually from? How many lakes do you guys have out in LA? Why are you guys called the Lakers? What's really funny is you're from Minneapolis. What happened was Los Angeles bought the team from Minneapolis. They used to be the Minneapolis Lakers, right? Land of 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. Funny little story. Well, my point behind this is there was a wonderful player for you guys, probably top 3 of all time, named Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant created something that he called the Black Mamba. There's something known as alter egos. And it's really, really fascinating. And I think one of the best things that we can do is we can create alter egos about any of this. First off, when it comes to rejection, what it really comes down to is, I think you need to analyze, what are you actually afraid of? And ask yourself the question, what am I actually afraid of? Am I afraid of making less money? And I think you need to get that conversation right. When I was in ISA, my alter ego, I became what I called the Superman of saving people. Why? Because 99% of people in this industry factually sell 2 homes per year. That's a fact, just so you all know. The top 1.2% of all agents sell 60% of homes. The bottom 98.8, if I want to be accurate, sell 40% of homes. You run the numbers on that, that is 2 homes per year. And I really just sat down and asked myself a question, which was, if somebody does something twice per year, how good are they at it? Probably god awful. It's like going to the gym twice a year and saying, man, I'm gonna be ripped. Okay, not gonna happen. Or it's like, oh, I'm gonna show up for my wife twice per year. I'm gonna be a grade A husband. Duh, no. But in real estate, for some reason, this is normal. That's like that. This is fact. And what I took it on is I had to put on my cape, and I had to take on this cause, my alter ego of I had to go rescue people, y'all. And when people chose to work with other people, that wasn't their fault, it was mine. So there was no rejection. It was just a missed opportunity. And I think what we have to do is we have to change the stories we're telling ourselves. I think what we also have to take into account is when you do get rejected, are you just sad about it? Are you frustrated about it? Or are you sitting there thinking, and are you going to go look at your game film? Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, what's the thing that he would do, whether you love him or hate him? What's the very first thing quarterbacks do when they throw interceptions, especially the good ones? They walk right to the sideline, they open up their game film, and they look, where did I fail? How many of you, when you fail, when you do get rejected, when it doesn't work out, you first zoom in on, man, what could I have done differently? My last and final piece on this is be realistic. If you're chasing paid internet leads, for example, the best in the game convert 3 to 4% of PPC leads to close. That means your batting average is 3.5%. In baseball, you're legendary if you hit 35%, 350. You're legendary in real estate if you convert 3.5, 0.035. That would be like getting a hit 3.5 times out of 100. You're legendary if you do that. What that means is that you're not going to convert. 96, 97% of the time. If you're a god in that game, with Zillow leads, the best people convert 20%. That means that they don't convert 80%. You got to be realistic and quit worrying about stupid stuff. Those would be the things I would say about rejection.
Awesome. Well, hey, Robby, thank you so much. That was amazing. If anyone wants to reach out, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Either add me on Facebook, just search Robby T. I always just, but the other reason I go by Robby T is my dad is Robert Trefethrin. And my dad's a great guy, but he's a truck driver. So unless you want driving lessons, I've had many people reach out to him. So again, search Robby T. You'll see me and my family. The other thing you can do is you can email me at robbyt@hatchcoaching.com or Instagram me at realrobbyt, @realrobbyt. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Robby, thank you so much.
Of course.
Hey, now we've got our inspiration, time to put in the perspiration. Don't forget, we've got Build coming up in San Antonio, Texas, July 10th, 11th, and 12th. Sign up. Tickets are going fast. It's going to be amazing. And thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks.
See y'all.
Thanks, Robby. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.